Welcome to Lift Your Story podcast with guest Elzie, Flenard, business leader, entrepreneur, singer, and podcaster. Hi, everyone. I'm Lorianne. I'm that gal from Toronto, Canada, and I'm with.
I'm that guy. I'm Roy Miller from Dallas, Texas. Welcome to our Lift Your Story podcast.
In this episode, we welcome Elzie Flenard III, and he's a business leader, entrepreneur, singer, and podcaster. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm always excited to be on this side of the mic.
Oh, great. Well, you're a podcaster, correct?
I am.
So the question is, number one, what made you want to be a podcaster?
Well, the short story is I never set out to be a podcaster. I had at the time started an internet radio station because I knew that I needed to learn more about business. I was stuck. I wanted to run my own business, but I was doing my side hustle for about 15 years and I wasn't making progress. And so long story short, the gap was I needed to know more about business. And so my plan was I was going to start this radio show, invite these brilliant business minds onto my show, ask them a couple of questions and shut up and learn. So that's what I did. And it worked. Eventually, people started to reach out to me to be on the show, like these people that I would have zero chance of ever meeting on anywhere else. And that's how I became a podcaster. I stumbled across an actual show and I fell in love with it. I was like, wait a minute. I hit play. I get the content I want, when I want it, how I want it. I was hooked. And it's been downhill since.
You know, your story is pretty interesting because we've interviewed a lot of people and they've said the same thing. You know, they struggle. They thought, well, I'll try this, you know, and they brought on successful people. They learned from those people and they went on to have success, you know. So, I mean, and like you got some free coaching, basically.
You can't tell the secret, Roy. A secret. You can't let the cat out of the bag.
So let me ask you, because people think, oh, podcast, I'll start a podcast, nothing to it. So what was your experience when you started your podcast? Was it what you thought it would be?
In some respects, yes, but in other ways, no. You know, obviously my background in music helped because I understood voice, I understood, you know, storytelling and how to listen and how to take people on a journey. And so that part was more seamless. The tech, again, I'm independent, so I have to be the recording engineer, I have to be the marketer, and so some of those skills I had. It was just a matter of translating into podcasting. The thing that I didn't expect was how fast the industry grew and how different it is even today, 6 years after I started, than when I started, which, you know, is the reason I started, because I started to do research and I'm like, okay, I think this thing is going to be big. Like people, the on-demand culture is here and it's here to stay and it's only going to grow. I had no idea that it was going to grow this big and it was going to be this big of a deal. And so I'm excited for where the industry is and where it's going.
It's interesting how with Alexa and Google, how it's made a difference too. I remember we were in a group, Roy and I, and the guy kept saying, you know, I'm going to teach you how to have a podcast on Alexa. He never did follow through with it and the group fell apart. And I'm thinking, no, I want to know because I've always wanted to do this. And like you said, 6 years ago, it was a lot more complicated. Even now, it's become a lot simpler to do a podcast. You know, it's like creating websites in podcast world. So that was interesting. So that was our thing. And it was thanks to Roy doing a presentation on in another group we were in that I finally said to him, I said, let's do it.
Yeah, I just tell you, we talk about stumbling into it, right? So we were doing some training and we needed a topic so I thought, well, how about I'll do some research on podcasting, because I was kind of intrigued by it because it was, you know, kind of popular. And so I did a bunch of research and did like a 5-week presentation on it, right? So on the last presentation, after we're through, Lorianne sends a message, hey, let's do a podcast. I'm like, about what? You know, we'll figure it out. we did. I mean, we kind of stumbled into it, and we've kind of made some adjustments. But I think where we are now is where we really want to stay.
Yeah. And that's really lucky for you, though, definitely, Elzie, that you had all of that, because a lot of people don't realize how much work there is in the editing, in the marketing aspect. They go on, they go, wow, I'll interview someone and then I'll just post it up, but that's not the deal. So you already had that experience, which is really lucky for you. So you knew the time that was required to put into it.
Well, podcast audio is a little bit different than music in that music in some ways is more time intensive, just because now it's, did you hit the right note? Is the inflection correct? That type of thing. Podcasting, I found is more of it's can be just as time intensive, but you're looking for different things, right? You're looking for how many times did I use my crutch word, where we all have them. How many times did I say or ah, or did I stumble, or did I set this question up too long, or so things like that. So you're shaping conversation and story versus the more technical things. So, but it was definitely a learning curve, and I've had such a ball. I don't do as much of my own editing anymore now that thankfully I have a team and they help me out. But it was a welcome learning curve for sure.
Very cool. Speaking of music, what kind of music do you sing, produce, or whatever? Like, tell us a little bit about that side. That's exciting.
Yeah. Now, believe it or not, I used to be a rapper. I was R&B guy for a little while, and as I grew older, I'm doing more and more worship music and music at church. So I'm probably going to be releasing new music this year, which is kind of scary because I haven't released music in what it feels like forever. And I have these songs that I wrote. I was looking at it the other day because whenever I write a song, I put the date on it for this reason. I wrote this song in 2013 and we're just now releasing it. So I'm excited about that.
Wow.
Well, now you're not using the fallback, because everybody says, well, due to COVID, I was able to sit down and devote the time, and I got this done. I've been trying for 5 years, and I finally got it done. Did you have any of those?
No, I found, Roy, that people find time for things that are important to them.
That's true.
I know I do. When it's important to me, I find time. Even if it's 5 minutes a day, I find time for it. So COVID, it adjusted my mindset in that it helped me to understand that I need to be agile. I need to be smart. I need to be wise, and I need to be Teflon in so many words. Like, you have to be resilient. Being an entrepreneur is hard. And if anybody tells you anything different, they're lying. And so, COVID has taught me as an entrepreneur that, you have to use all of the things that you have in there, right? Whether it's music, whether it's speaking, whether it's podcasting, whatever's in there, find a way to get it out into the world. Because one thing that I will not do, I will not die with any of the hopes, any of the dreams, any of the passions still in me. I'm gonna get it all out. So
I like that.
It's interesting you mentioned time, because it's probably back in the 70s. I had a course, and I can't remember. It may have been Napoleon Hill, someone in that realm. And the concept of it is get up 1 hour earlier every day. I mean, than you normally do, and spend that hour working on something. Self-improvement, if you got a project, and all you do for that 1 hour is just focus on that one thing, and how it will propel you a lot farther in what you're trying to do. If you're trying to learn something, if you're trying to practice for something, and if that's 365 hours that you focus on that one thing. And I found that to be pretty interesting. And I did try that when I was trying to learn some stuff in school, and it really did help, because it's undivided. There's no distractions, So, but I know what you're saying about time. You've got to really, for yourself, you've got to make that commitment.
yeah, I think too, being efficient. I found that especially the older I get, the wiser I get. I don't like to waste time as much anymore, and I don't like to allow people to waste my time. And so, I'm more focused, and when I'm present in the moment, I'm present in the moment, whether that's with my family or if that's at work, I'm present, I'm focused, and I found that that sort of multiplies your skills.
Yeah, the older you get, the more important time is, believe me,
Yes.
because you don't have much left. And
Yep.
like I say, you want to get the most out of what you have.
Yep.
As one of my friends kindly reminded me that I'm in my last quarter, make it happen. Although I've lived a very full life, so I'm not going to complain about that. I said, you're right too. Like, thanks for reminding me.
Yeah.
Uh,
But, we all, we're all like that.
Yeah.
We're all looking at the end, and it comes a lot faster than you think it's going to come.
Yeah.
It's like I told my son one time, he was giving me a hard time, and I said, you know what? You're fixing to turn 40, and you're going to blink your eyes and be 60 and wonder what happened. Oh yeah, Dad, whatever. Yeah, sure. I said, well, just remember I told you that. Because that's a fact. It's true. It is. So, I was going to ask you about your podcast, Podcast Town, correct?
Yes.
How long have you had that?
So Podcast Town is the larger agency, but so I've had a few different podcasts. Enterprise Now was the show that started out as a radio show. Then I turned it into a podcast, retired it, and now I'm bringing it sort of out of retirement. Podcast Town Throwdown is my newer show. We're about 20 episodes in, and they're very different shows, very different purposes. Enterprise Now is more for business owners, entrepreneurs. We talk a lot about mindset. We talk about achievement, getting to the next level, to the next step, whether that's up in corporate or out of corporate, and also really understanding the human behind business. Throwdown is all about growth in podcasting. We're talking about, tactics. We're having a ton of fun. We play trivia. I'm poking fun at my guests. My guests are poking fun at me, and we're learning about podcasting. So it's a fun time.
Do you want to say something, Lori?
yeah, I was just going to ask, in regards to your entrepreneurship, what does that all entail? It sounds like you've done so many things. So,
Yes. So I've done a lot of different things. Even when I was in corporate, I've had it feels like 1,000 jobs. I was a janitor at one point. I cleaned the bottom of barges. I have pulled carpet out of hotels. I've worked in fast food. I've worked in engineering. I've done a lot of different things, and my entrepreneurial career is similar. I've owned a minor league basketball team. I've owned a music label. I own the podcast agency. And so I guess that's just speaks to me as a person, and even in my bio, it reads, don't put me in a box, just because I'm everywhere. And I think that's sort of my personality is I want to go everywhere. I want to do everything. I want to learn about things that I disagree with. I want to talk to people who believe differently than I do. And so that's sort of who I am inherently. So entrepreneurially, I've done a number of different things.
that's fun. That's quite the scope. Absolutely.
Yep. So I can clean your bathroom and design you a control system.
Yeah. He's trying to figure out what he wants to be when he grows up. So tell me a little bit about your radio show. I'm kind of interested in how that works.
Yeah, so it was an internet based show, and we were on WQYLDB radio, and it was very similar to the Enterprise Now show as it is now, except we had the radio bumper, and it was live, which is another story and all in itself. And I'll tell you a quick. So first ever episode, and this is live. So, and it's an internet radio show. So I need the internet. So I set up all of my stuff. My guest and I, we sit down and we're getting ready to, to have our conversation. And I glance over and I look outside, and it's daytime, and it's dark. And I'm like, well, that's strange. It's daytime. Why is it dark? And so I look more closely, and these big rain clouds are just rolling over. And it starts to rain. Not only rain, I mean, it starts to pour, and the power goes out right before we're about to start our live internet radio show. And yeah, long story short, we finally figured it out and end up doing the show. But yeah, that was literally my first show where the power goes out and we can't broadcast because we don't have internet.
Wow. So, but because your guest wasn't sitting beside you, he was somewhere else, correct?
Oh, no, of course he was sitting right beside me, Roy. That's what makes it better. Now he's there looking at me like, okay, are we gonna do this thing? And I'm like, I don't know. Depends if the power comes back.
We've kind of been there, remotely, but kind of been there.
Yep.
So did you get call-ins on this radio show too? Like,
no, we were not that sophisticated yet.
okay. Because I like those. I think that's so much fun. I mean, it would be kind of interesting to do one of those where you can get the call-ins as well and get the outside people to ask questions as well. That's just,
Yeah.
It's
But
fun.
you got to remember, it's live.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. And people
God
say,
knows what someone might say on there.
yeah, people say the darndest things for sure.
Yeah, so you got to be careful because you don't have time to probably bleep it out, do you? You know.
So have you written a book yet?
Not, but I want to. And right now I'm debating on what I should talk about, but that's definitely in the plan for sure.
You just have to talk about your life, the different segments of it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
really.
it's been an interesting ride so far for sure.
Well, so like you said, it took you 15 years to become an overnight sensation, right?
Exactly.
Here are the steps I took.
Yeah. But no, I think it's pretty interesting. I mean, you know, especially for somebody that has so many things you want to accomplish, you know, and you've accomplished a lot of them, still more that you want to do, you know. And so, you know, you've got that drive and that focus that a lot of people don't have, you know, mindset, right?
Yeah, I think a large part of it is mindset. I'm not any more intelligent than the next person or any more good looking than anyone else. But I think that there is something to be said to that I am actually crazy enough to believe that I can do anything. Like I actually believe it, you know, as crazy as it sounds, you know, a lot of people say that, but they don't really believe it because their actions don't follow that up. And so every day when I wake up, I'm marching toward that goal. And those goals are big. But you know, we march one step at a time. We eat the elephant one bite at a time. And I think the large part of it is just believing that you can do it. It's just having this almost unhealthy belief that you can do anything.
I know Brian, I think it was Brian Tracy said, you know, because people, you know, don't accomplish what they want to do. And, you know, I don't have time, blah, blah, whatever. He said, look, when you're doing something, you need to think to yourself, it's what I'm doing right now, moving me toward my goal. If it's not, quit and do what's moving you toward your goal. He says simple. You ask yourself, is this what I want? Is this going to get me to X? Well, not really. Then stop and go over here and do what's going to get you towards X.
Are you talking about going on TikTok for 5 hours? Is that? So tell us, Elzie, what are, if you don't mind sharing, what are a couple of the future goals that you're looking and you're inspiring to do?
Yeah, one of the things that I really want to do is get back into engineering, right, on the ownership side. And so I don't know what that looks like exactly yet. I have a couple of ideas. I keep an inventory of business ideas. That's one thing that I'm starting to itch to get back into, just because I spent so much time in that world, you know, understanding how to find see a problem, figure out a solution, and then execute that solution, which is basically what engineering is. So that's one thing that I really want to do. The other thing is I want to continue to grow Podcast Town to the point where I can fire myself and the business no longer needs me, right? You know, it may need me for vision, for strategy and leadership, but it no longer needs me in the day-to-day. It runs on its own and it's continued to grow on its own. So those are sort of my top two things right now that I'm looking for.
So are you the guy that always has a notebook and is always thinking, oh, write this down, it's a good idea? you know, or there's something you want to do that you always go back and say, oh yeah, I remember right here, I was going to do this?
Yes, I have sticky notes. I have notes in my phone. I have voice memos, notes. I have a Google document that keeps some of the stuff. I have ideas everywhere and notes and things you wouldn't believe. It's kind of crazy.
Do you do that thing, you know, you just fall asleep and then you wake up with the idea as well?
That
Then
that
have
has
to
happened.
find, where's the paper?
that actually that has happened. That has happened for sure.
When the mind is resting, all these things start to come up.
Yeah, and you think, well, I'll remember that. The next morning you get up and you can't remember it for squat. So you got to have something, either write it down, get your phone, put a note in there or something, because you know you forget it just as quick as you comes to you almost.
That happens with music a lot. If there's a song idea or a lyric or a melody or harmony, and I don't jot it down in either on paper or in my voice memo, I wake up the next day and I'm like, well, what was that melody that I had? And it's lost forever. No one will ever hear it.
You're sitting there going, and I know that was the best one ever.
So what advice would you give people that, you know, that are wanting to be an entrepreneur, you know, kind of like where you started, you know, and you know, to get their goal, to follow through and make their goals?
The biggest piece of advice that I have is, again, believe that you can. And that sounds 30,000 foot and fluffy, but it really is the heart of success. You know, I think of, and forgive me for my basketball analogies, but if you look at guys like Giannis Antetokounmpo, the Milwaukee Bucks, world champions, very unlikely. What are the chances, coming from where he was born, with his upbringing, his circumstances, that he would be a two-time MVP, national basketball champion, and the face of a league? Very small. There was something in him that he believed, even when he was a skinny 17-year-old kid that got drafted, I think at 15. Something about him believing enough in himself to go to that weight room every single day, to take that bite every single day, to get stronger every single day. That's what made him what he is today. It wasn't just, you know, him having great coaches, which is part of the mindset, right? But it was the belief in himself that propelled him to success. And that is the X factor. You know, you could be as smart as a whip, have all the athleticism in the world, but if you don't have that belief, if you don't have that motivation, that drive, then you're not going to maximize your potential.
It's true. Actually, it reminds me of here in Canada, we have Pinball Clemens. I think I met him, and I'm 5'9", and he was probably this tall. Like, he was very short. And they said he'd never make it in football ever. And he did end up playing for the CFL. And he said, it's like what you said. He says, people were telling me I'd never make it. And he says, and I was determined to do it. And I was going to show them otherwise. So, yeah, that's his big story.
I can't remember the guy we interviewed, but he's Nigeria or Africa. I can't remember, but he was a kid, and he wanted to buy an ice cream. And his mother didn't have enough money to give him to get ice cream. So he went and got a bucket and started washing people's windows to get enough money to buy ice cream. And he just stayed with it. That was his first experience as an entrepreneur. And he stayed with it. He was like 7 years old. He grew up and he was so successful, started a lot of companies, has some charities. But, you know, and like he said, just like you, he had that motivation. I can do this. I'm going to do this. And he did it. 7 years old.
Yeah.
Against all odds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible. I mean, if we could just teach our kids, if they just had something at school that would just, you know, as they go through school, that would reinforce that for them and help them, you know, what a difference our world would be in 20 years.
Yeah,
Just a quick quick plug. I'm very proud of my daughter. She always had this, I always told her you can do whatever you want. I mean, she was on TV at 10 years old, and I mean, live on, City Pulse and stuff. And I'm thinking, and as she got older, she kept having that low self-esteem. I said, oh my goodness, how many 10-year-olds have done what you've done? And then at 23, she drove out all by herself from, the east to the west. And then she goes, and now she had this idea. She went to get her engineering, and she wanted to do this product to remove the nurdles off the sand. And she just finished her prototype. And I said, you see, I said, and I kept telling her, you can do it. She goes, that's because you're my mom. It was always that, right? I'm going, no, it's not.
But think about it. Think of the moms and dads that say, oh, you can't, that's stupid. You can't do that.
Mhm.
So that's the total
You're
opposite.
crazy.
And for me, my grandma, I think she is probably the only person, she's passed now, but that believed in me more than I did. I could go to her and say, Grandma, I'm gonna build a rocket ship and fly to the moon, and she would be on her porch the next day ready to go. Like, she believed in me. It's so important to have those people in our lives that have that sort of belief and faith in us. So kudos to you for being that support for your daughter.
Well, I got that from my parents. They were always like that. They kept telling me, gosh, what are you doing next, Lorianne? They're just kind of going, whoa, but they always supported my crazy ideas right from when I was, 11 years old to 13, and doing crazy things like haunted houses and doggy shows and stuff in the backyard. My mom just go for it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it is important. You're lucky you had that in your life too. It's very important to have that. Yes.
And you'd be surprised the number of people we've talked to that said their grandmother was their motivation, their hero.
Yeah.
And they attribute their success to their grandmother believing in them.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of people.
Yeah.
So Elzie, how can our listeners reach out to you?
Well, the easiest way is just via email, mayor@podcasttown.net. I'm always on my phone, so if you email me, I will get it.
Okay, cool. Well, it's really been a lot of fun talking to you.
Yes.
And thanks for being our guest. We really appreciate it.
No
Yes,
worries. It was a blast to be on, and thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Have a
All
great
right.
day. Bye-bye.